Welcome back to Building Belonging. My name is Mary Ellen LaRosa Hart, and I'm the manager of Pipeline Initiatives and Education here at DEIB. This episode is an iteration of a conversation we have every day as an office. From correcting misinformation to redirecting bad faith arguments, we've heard it all. And somehow someone will still manage to surprise us tomorrow. Each one of our stories had like a common threat. Like, these are not one-off incidents. These are just like things that continue to happen, and we all have similar experiences. The most interesting one to me was probably the thrift shop donor who really wanted us to have all these really nice suits, but could not be bothered to make sure that they got to us. He really highlights intent over impact, and thinking that if you're well-meaning or if the action seems well-meaning enough, that should be the end of it, and anything else that happens, any collateral consequences, are not important. The overall conversation that we have it every day, multiple times a day, and it just goes to show that even the most seasoned professionals and up-to-date folks are constantly facing new challenges in this work. And I hope that this episode can remind us that DEI is a practice and it's ongoing. There's no finish line that you reach. It's going to take a lot of humility and resilience and reassessment.
Welcome to Building Belonging, a podcast of the New York City Bar Association and its Office for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. Opinions expressed are those of the speakers and not necessarily of the City Bar.
Following up on the last episode where we were immediately reacting to something, and honestly, probably one of the most heinous messages we've ever received. But, upon reflection and thinking about it more and more, and we were talking about it, is like, yes, was that message horrible? Absolutely. But they're not new ideas. And we receive messages and critiques and complaints all the time. In fact, we've always received them. And while they're not as violent or vile as the one that we talked about last time, a lot of the critiques that we receive or things that we have to answer to stem from a lot of the same disinformation or problematic assumptions. And so we thought, why don't we dig in more into what some of these underlying assumptions are, demystify them, talk about them openly, talk about them with a DEI lens and context, so that we continue the conversation in a productive way and help folks build their toolbox in how to think about these issues, how to talk about these issues, and recognize these red herrings, recognize these arguments that even sometimes may seem like they have some merit in them. But if you just poke a little bit deeper, you can find some really gnarly assumptions.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I guess the only other angle is also getting into DEI work. You so quickly find yourself in these situations. Tanya's always like, oh, I come into the building at the City Bar. People are always cornering me to talk about stuff or checking on things. And I'm starting to have these moments at the City Bar where, like, I can't walk through the door without getting into a deep, meaningful conversation with somebody about something very real that's going on.
Which we love, right? Like, it's not that we don't love talking with people.
Yeah.
I just know that when I walk in, I need to allocate
I'm not trying
time.
it's not like a bad thing. It's
you
just,
got to account for it.
We're like, this is the other half of DEI work, like we're talking about.
Right.
The programming that we do and the initiatives, but there's like, especially because things are so unclear, the more you get into DEI work, the more you kind of become if you'll forgive me the expression, like a brand ambassador for DEI.
Yeah.
And you have to, it's like why we're kind of focusing in this podcast about what it is and what it isn't, and trying to help people who want to do more DEI work do this half the job, where you kind of have to be able to dispel a lot of what DEI isn't and get people, hear people coming at you with bad arguments about things. Difficult, even when you know the truth, to then vocalize and elaborate on what that truth is.
In a way that's like not defensive, right?
Yeah.
That's also not going to be off-putting or shut the other person down. It's a lot of things to navigate all at the same time if you haven't put in the work to practice doing it. I do think practice is important. And we get a lot of practice. Which is why we thought this would be a good episode to talk about this, because not everyone gets this much practice.
Okay. Who wants to start?
I thought you were starting, Dana. Dana, tell us about some of the hiccups or obstacles or misinformation you have run into doing this work, because a lot of the work you do with our office, aside from being an amazing coordinator, is you do great stuff around pipeline work. You have amazing expertise and lived experience in pipeline work. And so I think one of the areas you can talk about is what are some of the things we encounter? And can you tell people what pipeline work is for folks who don't know?
Yeah, so pipeline work are pretty much programs and initiatives that help create the legal profession more inclusive by providing students access to resources that they might not have already. I really want to start with the joke because it's funny at this point. It's like 3 pennies. But I refer to this a lot. If I had 1 penny for every time someone comes to me and we find some kind of disagreement and I clock a kind of DEI that is doing a disservice, so it's not really DEI, I would have like 3 pennies already. And I've been here for a year.
Yeah.
So it might not be much, but it's weird that it happens so many times. So yeah, one of the things that I've learned since being in working for the office is this kind of disagreement when people are like quote unquote allies and they want to support the work, but then they come with like there's some kind of disagreement with like the rooted ideas that I think we were talking about. I don't know if we were talking about this here or during one of our meetings, but pretty much like these ideas and arguments are rooted in from the same place. And I can think of 2 instances that it really hit home because, well, one of these instances we put a program for a pipeline program that we were talking about, and I had this person, let's call them Miss Know-It-All, and she basically came to me to talk about how we can improve the program to include more students from different communities and different like areas that we might not be thinking already. So we got in a call. It was like a 30-minute long call. In the very first 5 minutes, I knew where I was getting myself into. And if I had known, I probably would have taken a different action about it. But one of the things that, like I said, really hit home, for context, I went to community college as part of my educational journey. So I do love community college, and I try in the work that we do to always be including community college students because we're sometimes, if not most of the times, overlooked. But this person came and she was saying that we should include and do a different programming for community college students because in her opinion, community college students are the lowest skill students that she knows. And in context, like 5-10 minutes before she said that she like checked my LinkedIn and she knows that I transfer and all that. So like that was
Read a room, lady.
yeah. That was one of like how like it got me like thinking. Like first of all, my reaction to it hurt because she's talking about a community, but she's also talking about me because I'm part of that community.
Yeah, you were activated.
Definitely. But it was frustrating because I really wanted to like respond to it. I don't top like, lady, like let me stop you there. But I just couldn't. And I think that's part of like my being here, like doing DI work, a constant learning about how to like manage those situations. And I'm trying to do better because I might have more pennies along the way. But yeah, that actually, like those instances that one specifically had me thinking about Lily Zhang. And this is early in the book in DI deconstructed, but I keep thinking about it. But this kind of DI that people are doing, quote unquote, but it's only doing a disservice. There you go, Eli. And the other instance that
Wait, before you move
happened-
on to the second one, can you dig in a little bit? What is the assumption that is underlying this comment?
there's a huge stigma around community college, right? Like if you go to community college, you're not smart or you're not skilled or you're not whatever. And the reality about community college is that it's a complete opposite. Like it actually makes education accessible for so many people, for so many people. Not only talking about like financially, like being considerably like more affordable, but also like for non-traditional students, for parents that are coming back to college. So like, how are you saying this huge community of people that are just different, like different, non-traditional, let's say non-traditional, they're just the lowest skill, but also like are the lowest, like why are you saying that? And when we know community college students are the ones that have the least resources when talking about like schooling and stuff. So like, where's the problem? You know, are the students the problem, or is the system that's not giving us the resources we need to quote unquote succeed?
Excellent. That's exactly what I think we need to point out to people. Because just hearing it, I think there are people who are going to be like, oh, but that's true. Like that will literally be someone's reaction. And it's a real opportunity for you to point out the biases at play, where you're like, is it true? Or is there a stigma because we value as a society certain things, especially in the legal community, right? Like in the legal community, in our industry, when we think about law school and who gets opportunities and who doesn't, forget about community college. Even if you don't go to a top 14 law school, right? There are certain ideas about lawyers like that. And it's a huge issue in our industry. It's, based in hierarchy. It's based in elitism. It's based in racism, in exclusion. So it's not surprising that she said this, I think, in our context, because we understand. But I think we are not at a place where everyone can hear that comment and hear the bias in it. And I think you just revealed what the biases are. So thank you, Dana. Now we're ready for your next one. Go on ahead.
The next one was another of the programs, the pipeline programs. I would like to also like give a shout out to OD because a couple weeks ago we put up an amazing thrift shop for professional clothing for students and really anyone that needed professional clothing. And the best part of it is that, well, one, we like people that attended were able to like foster this beautiful community, but also people were able to get clothes even for free. So part of this pipeline programming is providing the students with the tools they need. And like some people don't necessarily think that clothes or professional clothing are part of the tools they need to like get into the field or get into like an internship, right? It's one of the things like people might not think of. So that's background for this story. We had some clothes that were remaining from the thrift shop, and we offered the clothes for the students that were part of the program. And we were told that they were all set and that the clothes were not necessary. And my first thought was, how do you even know what someone needs if you're coming from a place of privilege that you might not think of because maybe you never needed that? So I don't know if anyone would like to anything.
Wasn't the language like, we already went over this with our students, so like they don't need it? Like just talking to them about it isn't gonna do much if they're not in a place to spend the money or to get to the store to buy the clothes. And like, even if they have everything they need and they're all set, like, why not get a couple more things
for free? So they were not even giving the students the opportunity to say whether they wanted it or not, which I think was a huge red flag.
Seems like another case of somebody who is in a position of helping, in this case, students, assuming that they know better than the students do what those students need and are capable of.
That's exactly right.
It feels like I want to help versus I want them to have help in whatever it is. And that's not going to help.
Yeah, the power dynamics in these kind of relationships can be really tricky to navigate, even for the best intentioned of people.
Yeah, but then the best intentioned people, it's like, are you like, do you have the best intentions or do you just have white savior complex?
Best intentions by whose standards? Are they your best intentions? How are we measuring that?
They want cookies. That's what they want. If they don't get their cookies and they're not celebrated, then they're not happy. And like, God forbid they reach out to other organizations for assistance.
Yeah, it's very nuanced, right? Because I think there are a lot of contributing factors, as you all mentioned, kind of different facets of this. There was another piece of it, though. The person who rejected the clothing, aside from having covered it, also said something like, don't want to create a situation where there's haves and has-nots. Don't worry, boo-boo. Society has already done that. Like, you're not the one creating the haves and have-nots. We're already there. So are you going to support the have-nots so that they're more like the haves? Or are you just going to pretend it doesn't exist and gatekeep real opportunity and access that you don't even value, to your point, Dana, because you don't know what it's like to not have good clothes to be able to wear to interview. You've never experienced clothing as a barrier, when many students face something as simple as clothing as a barrier. Girl, I remember the first time I went to a college interview, and it was in the winter. And this is when I was applying to different colleges. And I felt so ashamed. My self-esteem around my clothing was like at an all-time low because I didn't have a proper like fancy coat to wear to this interview. Like I had the outfit, like I had the like business professional outfit, but it was the first time I had to go to an interview like this, and I didn't have appropriate, again, quote unquote, appropriate outerwear. And it was when I showed up at the interview with my big puffy North Face coat. It was very era appropriate and neighborhood appropriate. But like that big old snorkel, it was called the snorkel, and my fancy like outfit. And when I walked in, it was one of the all girls colleges. The way those women looked at me, or at least the way I perceived it, who knows what they were really looking at, but the way that I perceived it, it was like one of these things is not like the others. Like everyone else had beautiful pea coats and these great coats, and I had this big ass North Face looking like I'm jumping out the projects into this interview, and that's what it felt like. And so the fact that this woman was like, we're all set,
Right.
so fucking annoying. Yeah.
That's honestly such a good metaphor for the whole pipeline issue that we work on anyway, where like it's, no matter how much work that sometimes you do or people are trying to do to help, people get in the door, it's like that one detail you didn't think about could totally, knock people off their game just because this system requires you to follow all these little rules. And if you just forget one, it's like that can be the thing that totally throws somebody off.
Were those all your shares, Dana, or do you have more? You said you had 3 pennies. So I think we heard 2 pennies.
Yeah. Well, this one was more recent, but Eli and I, there was someone that approached us during the thrift shop.
Oh, is that?
And every single ODEEB event that I go to,
Someone
there's
goes,
someone coming and they have to say what we should be doing better.
So
Or how we should be
passive-aggressive.
doing.
Wild.
Yeah,
they
but
say?
actually, Eli handled it beautifully.
Thank you.
So, Eli, do you wanna tell us about it?
They were so excited to be there, of course, and what a great event, and you guys, this is great. But and there's about she was like, if it were me, and she just had a whole laundry list of that, sort of amounted to making it something completely different. Like while we were standing there in the event, which was going great,
Yeah.
she just couldn't.
And that's when you
not
say,
tell us.
great, cannot wait to work with you next year so you can do all of that.
That is exactly what I said. Exactly.
You'll never see her again.
Well-intentioned. They don't know what to do with
Oh,
it.
no, I love it. I mean, we got some of it even before the event. We were like telling people, and they're like, oh, yeah, you should have tailors there. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
really? Do you know some who will do it for free?
I was talking to Dana about it. I think we're certainly sitting there just like taking it in because it is a little bit like it came totally out of left field. I try to just do a lot of like, okay, yeah, like maybe some of these ideas will be good ideas. I mean, the context in which they're being delivered is totally off brand and unhelpful, but sure, okay. Thanks for your feedback.
You know what?
Rest for.
I do want to like tag into the thrift shop threads of opportunity. I was fielding a lot of emails, and 9 out of the 10 emails, I'm just like hitting my head to make my eyes go back. to the front of my face because they were rolling to the back of my brain. We have said well-intentioned, and yes, intentioned, but like also lazy, because there were so many, I had so many people who the whole purpose was to clean out your closet, right? And like who does out their closet? Who doesn't want to declutter? These clothes don't fit you anymore. You look good, you lost weight, these clothes don't fit you anymore. You want to get them out of your closet. And we were your people for it. But so many people didn't understand that we are a nonprofit. So they're like, could you just like send me shipment material so that I can send this over?
Oh, yeah.
And the amount of people that told me how great their clothes were and that we were missing out because their clothes were so great and that we had to pay for it. And then when I would suggest, okay, yeah, that's wonderful. I can definitely send something, but you should pay for it. And obviously I didn't say it like that. I said like, oh, we are a nonprofit and all of our programs we pay for from fundraising. Here's our fundraising link for this event exclusively. And then crickets, right? Like there are so many people who had all of these clothes that they wanted to give to us when I would send them the fundraising link so that we can make it happen. Crickets. Or they would just get really upset and say how they had amazing clothes. And I will say one experience that I had, mostly because I don't think this person's going to be listening to this podcast. And Eli had to deal with the end of it. So thank you to Eli. But our threads of opportunity email, right? So that goes out. And what the thrift shop was about was having people declutter, professional, well-maintained, no stains, no rips clothes, so that anyone who's in need of zhuzhing up their wardrobe can come and shop any price that they're able to provide. I had this gentleman, I'm going to call him Mr. Nice Suit. Mr. Nice Suits. He called me, and the first thing he said to me was he bragged about how expensive his suits were and how he has so many of these very expensive suits, which is great. We could definitely use them. And he said, they're just sitting in my closet and I would like to give them to you because he's like, I could give it to my housekeeper, but I don't think her people are going to need it. I'm like, I'm on the phone and I'm obviously very activated because my mom was a housekeeper. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay.
My mom was a housekeeper too, and I know the type, and I know how they talk,
and you know how they talk
to us like that.
And I'm not going to say where he lived, but he lived in a nice area of Manhattan. I'll just say that. So he could have afforded to send all of his very nice, expensive suits to us. So I was like, okay, thank you. If something comes up, I'll let you know. Hung up on him. I was going into the office. I was arranging for pickups. I was like, you know what? Let me just give this guy a call because as much as he annoys me, I don't want my own activation to prevent someone who is in need of these suits. So let me just like put that aside, give him a call to set it up. I gave him a call. I said, I'll be available around this time. Does that work for you? He said he has the afternoon free. Great. We're setting up. He's in the back of my mind, like, oh, I got to like set that up. But also I'm not like moving towards it. I'm not like making it priority because we had a bunch of other things to do. And I don't like him. I didn't make it a priority. And he was calling the office and somehow poor Eli had to deal with it. And then I was like, I was on the phone with him and you know what? I'm going to take this on, Angie. I'm not going to have you deal with it. And then for context, I did say like, Eli, listen, I'm going to be totally honest. I am like dodging this guy. It's unprofessional, but I don't like him.
No, you gave me the very important contact. I don't remember how he got through. He like called somebody and got them to transfer him to me. And so then I just thought he was like somebody who was trying to get some of the stuff.
Yeah.
And I kind of jumped into action because it was really just like an all hands on deck kind of day. And you gave me the full context and I just, took my foot off the gas entirely.
But these are the types of people where the white savior complex comes in. They like dangle what they have in front of us, like dance for me, puppets, dance. Like they dangle it in front of us because we need it. And because of out of need, it's like just another level of humiliation, right? Because we are in need of it. We do have individuals who are in need of these suits, but because we're in need of it, we're going to allow you to say, my housekeeper, I could give it to her, but like her people don't need it.
The her people part is just
egregious.
It's a lot. And again, the vast majority of the people who participate in the work and who donate and who help us are so generous with their time and materials and their clothes, are so thoughtful about us. I mean, there are people who literally brought us sweets and volunteered their time and energy. But there are also these people. And I think it's really important that we talk about it and that we're honest about it, because I don't think it's fair to us. I don't think it's fair to this work. And if we want something to be better, we have to be honest about it and we have to be transparent about it. And, you know, I feel a lot of nonprofits and a lot of folks who do cause work hold some of the ugly parts to their chest. We're taught to.
Yeah.
I feel like even for me, how many times have I wanted to say something and I get kind of like, hey, Tanya, can you not? Hey, Tanya, would you reframe that? Or something like, I mean, there are people who try to rein me in all the time. And so I get it. But I do think that we will never see progress if we don't talk about the ugly parts.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a good one. All right, who's next?
Do we want to talk about Mr. My Best Friend? I felt like I just went. I'll continue though. I'll continue.
Marilyn, do you want to go, or do you want someone else to go first?
I was just gonna say I did pull up Mr. My Best Friend's email. Obviously not to read the whole thing, but I can give like a little quote, a little snippet of it.
Which one? Because there's so many.
The original, baby.
The original and the last one were particularly crazy.
Yeah.
Like the last one was crazy and the first one was also, I mean, they're all crazy, but like a special level of crazy on the first and last. So I feel like you could pick and choose.
I'll set the stage for Mr. My Best Friend. So for context, we're calling him Mr. My Best Friend today because he's a repeat offender, and in the various emails that he has sent to us, he has made sure many times to let us know that he's not racist because his best friend is a Black American. His words. So he's not. So we're calling him Mr. My Best Friend, and he came to us after we sent an email to City Bar members about Black History Month. And it wasn't an offensive email. It was talking about the history of Black History Month, why we need to talk about it, why we need to celebrate Black success, why we need to talk about all the wrongdoings that happen to our Black Americans. So I'm going to read just a little snippet of this response that we received. Let me pick my favorite line.
And if I'm not wrong, Angie, wasn't it like just emphasizing that Black history is American history, and so it's important for everyone to know Black history because it's American history? Isn't that the whole message?
That was the whole point.
Was this also the year we did the anti-racism challenge?
No.
No. This is
Okay,
even
it was
before
even
that.
before that? Gotcha.
This was
even
before that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a little snippet. This is the Office of Exclusion, not diversity. If you really want diversity and inclusion, then by all means include everyone, not just one race. This is an exclusive agenda, and it's offensive to those of us who are really inclusive of everyone. And that was just a little snippet of it.
I don't have the direct quote, but just to be the bookend of this, in the last email we got of him, because this happened for years, he harassed us for years. In the last email, he said something like, "It's not my fault that I know more about Black history than Black people." This is a lawyer, y'all.
In all caps.
All caps, yeah. He likes to write to us in all caps.
All of his emails were always sent in all caps. And also, like, it's not like, and I was just going through it, it's not like he hit caps lock and then typed. Like, Homeboy was on, like, shift because not all of the letters are capped. Like,
that shift is crazy.
Like, his pinky was on shift and was just, like, typing away.
Wow.
Like, Homeboy, like, just hit the caps lock and type. But so Mr. My Best Friend, he emailed us various times, repeat offender with not just our office, but other outlets within the City Bar.
He was a repeat offender, and we flagged him first. I just want to put that out there.
Everyone was still surprised when he was a problem for everyone else, though.
Yeah. Can we do the unpacking exercise, though? Because I think that is super helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those it's like pretty obvious that this is problematic and silly, but I do think it is helpful for people to hear kind of how we
I don't think it's obvious,
responded and like put into words what exactly he was getting
I think
wrong.
we have to, because I think there are a lot of people who would agree, who would be like, yes, celebrating Black History Month is exclusionary. I think there are people who would be like, yes, if you do that, that is not inclusive. So we should talk about it. So go ahead, Angie. Do you want to take a first stab?
No.
She said, I'm here. She said, I am here to spot issues, not solve them.
No, let me. I will say, so just speaking about that, people with that mindset, and from past podcast episodes, I've shared that I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. So these are the types of responses that I'm so used to hearing in my everyday. When I go to the grocery store, I go to the bagel store, I see Fox News on the TV, and I just hear neighbors talking like this. Like, I hear this jargon. And I think it's almost like talking to a brick wall with so many of these people that feel this way, because the message that we're trying to get across is white supremacy is deep rooted in our system, in what we're taught in schools, in what we see on the media, in the 9 to 5. The fact that we work 9 to 5, that's white supremacy. Like, white supremacy is deep rooted in every single thing that we do. And if we don't talk about Black history, if we don't talk about how there's inequities for Black and brown people, especially Black people, if we don't talk about those inequities, then we're never going to progress. And I think people who are emotionally mature, people who have empathy, people who are who have intelligence, like, we can see past you're only talking about one race, so you're exclusive. And it's sad, because I really does feel like it's just talking to a brick wall with these people. But I think for me, because I'm essentially surrounded by it, you just have to keep on preaching the same thing, and hopefully there's a crack in one of those bricks and you can make yourself through.
Anyone else want to chime in on this one?
I kind of want to see if I can take the handoff to the one that I was going to do, because it's very similar in terms of like what it was somebody making the same sort of assumption, but in sort of an oddly, to my ear, like even more sort of, I don't know, insidious feels wrong. We were on this theme of good intentions. I don't think this person was as, I don't know, maybe we'll cut this, but I got, we got a message from somebody who actually was making a pretty good faith effort to raise concerns with us in kind of a thoughtful and straightforward way. We got a very respectful email, but basically making the exact point that Angie was just raising, this thing of like, I think the expression they used was like, why, how could you have this sort of like just skin deep diversity? It was, in reference to, something about our approach to selecting leadership at the city bar and wanting to make sure that we had representation from people who were part of groups that had historically been excluded from the profession. They sort of conveniently overlooked that part of our statement, and they were, sort of the underlying assumption that never got said and had to be refuted was this thing of like, well, it's just a quota system. You have a quota and you just want X number of people from this group and X number of people from this group. It was like, whoa, let's take a step back. Please do consider the historical context, why we're doing this. And, the fact that people have been historically excluded from this profession. And so we need to take into account exactly those historical facts and those characteristics in order to correct that injustice. And then there was sort of an additional thing here where, again, buried assumptions. I think that's why oftentimes it's like really hard to speak against these kinds of anti-DEI arguments, not just in DEI. I mean, I think this is sort of an issue that is endemic to like the left-right divide, where like people are talking past each other because they're coming from a completely different set of assumptions. But this person's assumption was that we couldn't somehow select the best people. This was their sort of frame, like, you shouldn't be, don't do this skin deep diversity thing. Just pick the best people for the job. And we're like, those are the same thing. That's not we can't do both. Like, we can't, it's not precisely because people bring experience from different walks of life, different communities, different people who have experience the profession in different kinds of ways, not just the way that you have experienced. This was a white man writing to us. They need to, we need that kind of experience in the room. Those are the best people for the job. Rest assured, we will get people who bring that experience and are the best lawyers in their field. Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what both of you have added here, I think you hit the nail on the head on some of the underlying assumptions. But it's hard to have these conversations without naming those assumptions explicitly. And it's also hard to name those assumptions explicitly, right? Because even if you pointed it out to someone, let's say in conversation, the way you pointed out, your word choice, how you pointed out could completely shut them down, or they could become defensive. But the arguments that you both are mentioning, basically the same kind of idea, right?
Yeah.
If we're celebrating the diversity of our staff or our leadership or whatever, then it means that they're not qualified, right? And it's like, why is your assumption that someone who is not white underqualified? What is the underlying assumption there? And then it goes even further back to what Dana brought up.
Exactly.
Right? If your idea is that everyone else is underqualified, then where does that leave us as a society? Are they underqualified because they inherently cannot be as qualified? Or are they underqualified for whatever, assuming that they are underqualified, which we don't? What is the reason? And you can see how these arguments will turn real circular, get real bendy and windy. And we talk about this all the time. We know that facts do not change minds. Even if I put all the research in front of these people that showed the data, that showed that actually the most educated group in America are Black women. Black women are the most educated group of people in America by all measures. They have more PhDs, everything. So you would think under this logic, they would have the highest paying jobs, the most titles everywhere, but that doesn't line. And so even if you put things like that in front of folks, that is not what changes their mind. What changes people's minds is their own ability to question their assumptions, to be curious, and to come to a different conclusion. And so one of the hard things about having these conversations is that if you're going in trying to change someone's mind, you're almost always going to fail. It's like, how do you navigate that? It's almost exhausting because you're like, okay, I have to talk to this person. I have a sense of what their assumptions are. I want them to be curious. How can I get them to be curious? And I was just wondering if you all had thoughts about that, especially when it comes to this topic. Like people who obviously have assumptions about this hierarchy we've all been taught.
I think if I had like a real answer, like I could run for president and just like I could run for president and do something. My coming from being a Latina in a predominantly white space where I live and where I went to school and where I went to college, honestly, I think the people who I'm not going to change their mind, I think they're not going to change my mind. We're not going to change each other's minds. So I'm just going to keep on spitting the facts, telling the truth, and hopefully anyone who's still moldable, whose mind can, I think it's important in my stance to stay where I'm at and keep on speaking facts, figures, truth, so that anyone who's speaking their opinions and opinion-based facts, anyone younger or anybody who's like starting to step into the light can hear the facts from me and make their choice.
Yeah, I've been through the whole learning to unlearn process, and I think probably said this in one of the episodes, but it's an ego thing. Like people need to like put their ego aside and like, because people love to be right. So it's really hard to like change people's mind, especially the older they are, because they want to be right. So I think my comment about all of this is, yeah, it's hard, but like people need to be open enough to let their ego down and like be willing to unlearn and learn. the actual facts and not just vibes and thoughts that they just think it's correct.
I think it's definitely hard to hold my tongue sometimes, but similar to what Angie was saying, like, I'll be like, okay, I'm sorry that that you don't see things. I'm not trying to change your mind. Like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And if and when you're ready to accept that, like, I'll be right here. We can talk. But yeah, I think just as important as letting them know that I'm not trying to change their mind is that, like, no matter what you say, you're not going to change my mind. I know what I'm doing is right. I'm going to keep doing my thing. And I think that can be maybe a little disarming to people that are spouting whatever because it just feels right or that's what they heard before, because it's like, oh, you have beliefs to back this up? What do you mean? Just kill them with kindness, and I'll still work for your liberation just as much as I'm going to work for everyone else's, even if you don't think you need it and don't want it. Like, you're a human being. You deserve it.
Mary Ellen for president.
Not for 5 more years.
This is a good segue into your share, Mary Ellen.
Can I add? Sorry, do you mind if I have one more thing on that last point? Just that, first of all, I know Mary Ellen has a lot of experience, a lot of good experience dealing with people who do not want to have their minds changed. And there is, I think that first, like when you're wanting to change somebody's mind, the first distinction to observe is whether or not they are dealing with you in good faith. Like some people do just want to be right, and they're not there to talk, and it can be really delicate to figure out how to engage. But I think there's still a lot of value in setting the record straight. It's just that it can be tricky to sort of step into the circle, make a point, and then step out again without getting sucked into something. And that's always kind of going to depend on who you're dealing with and how well you know them and, what it is like. Maybe it's not worth your time and energy to engage at all. And that's just a decision you got to make. Sometimes, though, with people who are coming to you, at least with some sense of openness, like that does happen sometimes. People who, I feel like a lot of, we talked on like some past episodes about people who like just want to follow the rules, who may say some problematic things, but at least they're in that place. They're like, just tell me what the rules are. And you kind of need to set the record straight about that too. But I wanted to say that when you drill down on really any of these issues, I think eventually you get to a sense of discomfort that somebody is bringing in and not wanting to deal with. And if you can point that out and speak to it, not even fix it or address it, but just point out that sense of discomfort and acknowledge it, I think that is a really powerful tool for getting somebody to consider what you're telling them. And even just pointing out that discomfort oftentimes will help somebody it'll prompt them, I think, to do their own work. If you're just like, I get that you're uncomfortable about this, that can be even more powerful than the most powerful factual argument.
I do have a bit of an aside that's related to what Eli was saying, which we cut out if it doesn't feel relevant. But the other night, I let someone who was acting not in good faith get to me at our tenants union meeting, and he came in already like, this is all BS. I don't like any of this. And we're like, okay. And I guess he thought that I was the one that was going to be quiet and take whatever he had to say. After the meeting, he came up to me and was talking to me and, well, what's this and that? And what are you guys even doing? And, defending landlords, and they have to make their money and blah, blah, blah. And okay, whatever. And so I told him the facts, and he just kept, well, no, I don't believe in that. And I was like, well, I don't know what you don't believe in. It's illegal. They broke this law. And then Allie came up from behind, swooped in. Here's the bill. Let me read it to you. And then we were feeding off each other, and like, didn't change his mind. Didn't get anything productive out of that, but like, felt so good.
But you know what? If anybody was there, like watching,
and that's why I was like, I'm not just gonna let him infect other people's minds with like, okay, maybe we should give up. Like,
I wish this was on camera.
You're not giving up. You don't have to do anything. Allegedly, it's on camera, but
give me the footage.
They record our meetings. That's for another day. But yes, engaging, even when you know it's not productive, it feels good sometimes. And then his wife made him leave.
But also, you don't know who's watching, right? You never know who's watching and who.
Exactly.
And you don't want, like you said, you don't want him or people who believe like him to infect anybody's mind. So it's not age, but sometimes you just gotta.
Well, like, some people just don't believe that, like, they should fix the mold problem. I'm like, yeah, there shouldn't be a mold problem. Yes, they should fix it. Your room should not be full of mold. Like, you're paying to live here and they're not going to fix your stuff. Like,
Tell that to your
even if,
bronchitis, dude.
like, even if you think that our like landlord, because it's owned by like 300 companies, need to make their money, and it's not fair we're making them spend their money like on mold remediation. Like, come on. But okay, so Tim Flip, where do we start?
The Thurgood Marshall Summer Law Internship Program.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might
Yeah.
have to give some context.
Everything we do is such a mouthful.
It's so much. It's always so much. Every time I have to say my title, y'all, I'm like, I take a deep breath. But yeah, I think you have to some context, Mary Ellen, and I don't even know which Tim Slip story you're gonna tell because we have so many from Tim
We have
Slip. So
so many.
I'm gonna grab my popcorn while you go through it.
All right, I'll go in, try and go in chronological order. Tim Slip is our Thurgood Marshall professional, or no, it's not. Tim Slip is the Thurgood Marshall Summer Law Internship Program, and that's our longest running program. It actually predates our office. And it's where we pair high school students from New York City public schools with legal employers for the summer. And a lot of these folks, again, are super well-intentioned and maybe not so mindful of the impact because they think their intention is enough. So I've run into quite a few interesting scenarios in the last few years that I've been administering the program. I think the first one this was like the first big one, and it was Tanya's like third day on the job, and she was like going on vacation. We really hadn't worked together yet, and I'm like, okay, well, I have a doozy for you. So she handled it like from the airport. But there was a student who needed to leave the program early, and so let their firm know, and the firm had sent out a bunch of equipment to the student's house, and so they needed that back. And she didn't answer their email right away. And so she's 16 years old. She's on summer break. She's doing other stuff. She was delayed by, I think, like 2 days answering their email. And in the meantime, they reached out to me and were talking about, taking legal action, calling the cops because how dare she not return their stuff right away.
Call the cops?
Yeah. Like they were going to pursue legal action against the minor.
Oh boy. Yeah.
And it caught me off guard. This was the first time anything like big like this had happened. And so I obviously looped in my boss right away. And I was like, I'm sorry, this is like our first impression of each other. But they were ready to do whatever they needed to do to get back their equipment. And, so eventually I got in touch with the student and said, hey, have you heard from them? Like, just want to check in and see what's going on. And she's like, yeah, I don't have the money to send this back. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to get all of this stuff back to them. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. You're a kid. So we did a lot of back and forth with them. And I mean, in the end, they understood, I think, quote, air quotes there, because they were so in the wrong. But like we had to meet with their like people from their DEI team, I guess, or HR or something. We met with a bunch of folks from there and like had to work it out. But it was, I don't know. I don't remember all the details now. It was a few years ago, but it sticks out in my mind as something every year that I'm like, okay, how do I make sure that I'm wording everything in the emails and in the trainings correctly so that they don't come back and start accusing the very kids that they're saying that they want to help and welcome and provide opportunities for, and turn around and potentially ruin their life because you didn't get your mouse back like fast enough. Like, you're fine.
Yeah, I remember this, and it was pretty nasty. I wrote back immediately from my phone. You're right. I was doing it from my phone. And I very quickly pointed out how this was racist and that this would have collateral consequences on a child's life, and that the whole point of a pipeline program is to be intentional about what kind of impact we're making and what pipeline they end up in. It's like, here we are trying to get this student to be a lawyer, but you want to put them in the school to prison pipeline. Okay, go ahead with your bad self. Tell us how great your service is to the student. And from what I remember, the student had to pull out because they were experiencing some real issues and like for their own health and safety needed to like pull out of this program and didn't have the capacity to be emailing in the immediate. But again, you're right, Mary Ellen, it was just 2 days. 2 days later, the student responded, was like, oh my God, they're calling me a thief. Like, I can't believe they're calling me a thief. And the student themselves was like, it's because I'm a student of color. They wouldn't have done otherwise. And so we spent a lot of time talking to the student. We had email exchanges with the organization, many of them. And they were not taking what we were saying so kindly. No. They were just like, oh, you misinterpreted what we said. We weren't going to, we're not being racist. One of them was like, you're not being racist. I'm a person of color myself. I was like, I literally wrote, that don't mean nothing. Be a person of color and still be racist. Get out of my face with that nonsense. But they also pulled, instead of dealing with me directly, when they saw that I wasn't having their nonsense, went up a level and went to my boss. Yep. Instead of talking to me. And so it's just like, you are losing if you can't even deal with me. Like, get out of here. So it all ended up fine. And like, we never partnered with them again. Because why would I ever send a student to an institution that will treat them like that?
Did we talk about how when they emailed, they said, oh, but this student was so quick to respond to her email about receiving her paycheck?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They were like, oh, so she can't do it fast enough for this, but she could do it fast enough for that. Yep. That's right. That's right.
And like that, when that little line was, we haven't heard back about returning the equipment, but she was quick to respond for receiving her paycheck. That, oof. And Tanya, you were like on your way to an airport to go on vacation.
It was like, I think I may have been on the job 2 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
But I was getting, was it because of, it was my daughter's like baptism or something. My schedule had already been planned. I was traveling.
It was already planned. Yeah.
Way before I had this job. And of course I get this job and the whole thing. And I'm like, look, I'm going to be working 2 weeks, but then I have to go on vacation, but I'll be back. And it was literally, but you know what? It was such a bonding experience because I think that once we all responded, we're like, oh, okay, we're on the same team. Okay.
Real seed real. Honestly, I remember when that happened, I texted Marielle and I was like, dang, there she goes. Now she's going to leave us. Like, dang, 2 weeks in. But
Double trauma.
It was trauma bonded. We are in it together.
Yeah, that wouldn't scare me away.
No.
I eat that for breakfast.
That may have been years ago, but we get so many examples of people who have raised their hand for this work who obviously have no idea what it is and what it is about and what it means to get involved.
They want to say they're doing the good work, right? They want to, but they don't. They want to get the recognition without doing the work and the understanding.
They want that cookie.
They want their cookie.
Yeah.
No cookie for you.
I mean, we don't get me wrong. We have amazing partners.
We do.
Who know what they're doing and who are like really in this work and we really partner with them. And then there's always the opportunity to have new partners, right? And sometimes you don't know what you're getting involved in until you have some kind of misstep like this. But I will tell you, we learn. Every time we've had one of these little hiccups, sorry, my daughter's having a moment. We've had one of these hiccups. It has changed the way that we communicate our expectations. It changes what we do in our orientation. Our orientation and materials have changed every single year. Not changed like drastically, but have been updated to include things. Like this was the first one, Miriam, but we've had so many others. So many others, including just this last year.
Right.
We now are going to have a formal contract for Tim Slip because of what happened this year. I don't know if you were going to go into that, but Tim Slip has a lot.
I was going to get there.
Oh, okay, go ahead, girl. It's all yours.
Well, I mean, since we brought up the contract, like Eli was saying, people come in with think they come in with the best of intentions, but they're there for the cookie. And just this past spring, we had a firm pull out, very last minute. We'd already like set them up with students for the summer. They were taking 2. which they later came back and said, no, we would have never signed up for 2. And I was like, here's the form you filled out. I don't know. Maybe you don't know your numbers, but this says 2. But when they pulled out, I not that I didn't think anything of it at first, but they said, hey, we can't do it this year. I said, okay, no problem. Like, can you pay for the 2 stipends that we now have to find other positions for? Like, we only admit the number of students equivalent to the number of spots that our employers offer each year. And they were very surprised to hear that and had no idea that they were obligated to take students if they signed up for them. And I tried to take it as like, okay, this is my lesson to learn and I need to be more clear about that. And we will be, we're working with our GC to get a contract together, and I'll be much more explicit about it, to the point that people are probably going to read it next year and be like, oh, of course we have to take the student we signed up for. What do you mean? But now there are going to be no holes for you to poke and say, nope, we're not going to do this because we don't want to, or whatever the reason might be. But yeah, it makes me wonder how, if that were truly the case, how did you partner with us for like the last 30 years and it was fine, and now all of a sudden you're discovering that we've been doing it wrong, or we've been working under the wrong assumption this whole time.
Just to add some context, like, the organization that Mary Ellen is talking about is a big law firm. It is a sophisticated entity that literally deals in the law. This is not a surprise, and there's no reason for these folks to feign ignorance. But I think that sometimes lawyers be lawyering. I mean, like, even if they know they're in the wrong, they're going to do everything in their power to negotiate and use tactics that I think in maybe other legal spaces and contexts are completely appropriate and fine to do. But then they forget that they're not in that context and space. And I see this every single time with these kinds of issues. Like, even in the other instance that we just talked about where they threatened legal action, I could tell they just copied and pasted their standard regular schmegular language that they use with counterparties that they're dealing with in this context. And it's like, no, boo-boo, know your audience, know the context. That's also lawyering. Lawyering is also knowing your context and audience and what's appropriate. So it's just a shame that this is the case, but it is a reality. And I think it's important that we talk about it, because you don't want to be that person. You don't want to be the person who's coming to a program with good intentions and looking like you are insane, or like completely heartless or careless or thoughtless, because that's what you look like to us.
I want to add, like, I was not able to take unpaid internships when I was going into college and when I was in college, because everything that I needed academically for books, anything, my parents weren't in the position to give me that kind of money. So I had to work. So I spent my summers working. I didn't do internships, and that really like held me back in a lot of cases, because I wasn't able to put internships on my resume. But it's because I couldn't. It's because I had to work. So when we talk about Tim Slip, I get myself back in the mindset of a young college student knowing what I need, and I put myself in their shoes because I get it. I get where they're coming from. And I think so many of these well-intentioned adults come in and they didn't have that experience, probably because they were privileged and they had support from their parents, or it's been so long that they forgot what it's like to be a student. And because it's not their problem, it's not a problem.
This is such a full circle moment from the beginning of this episode, like what Dana was talking about. And it's the same theme, right? Like, assuming that you know more or better than the actual people you're trying to serve. It's colonization. Let's just name it.
Yeah.
Let's just name it. This is colonization, right? And we have to decolonize our work, and we have to decolonize the way that we interact with each other, right? And I think I said this in the last episode. I don't know. Maybe I've said it every episode. I have no idea. Like, my autonomy ends where yours starts, and vice versa. You should not be deciding for me what I need. And if you are a gatekeeper, whether you want to be or not, you should be extremely intentional about what you're gatekeeping, especially if it's opportunity. And that's what DEI is meant to do. It's meant to break down those barriers. It's meant to make sure that when we find people or situations that are literally creating a barrier, like for the students that we talked about in that pipeline program that didn't get access to free clothes because their director assumed she knew better than they do what they needed. Or in this case, where this young lady couldn't do this program, and so she was labeled as a problem person, which could affect her ability to do other things if they took more action or if they did different things. Instead of meeting her with compassion and care and not taking it so personally that a teenager didn't want to do their internship program. Like, don't get me wrong. Of course, we want all of our interns to successfully do their programs. And 99.9% of the time, that's what happens. I mean, this is the only time since I've been here that we actually had someone drop the program. And it was completely unexpected and kind of a freak thing. This person was dealing with a crisis. People are allowed to fucking crises without losing every opportunity in the future. Why is a crisis and issues only preserved for the privileged? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Can I tell you? I could tell you about the one I got this morning. Specifically, this was in regards to my last LinkedIn post about the threads of opportunity, where like we raised this much donations. This is DEI, where I'm talking about how the threads of opportunity is DEI. So this is what this person wrote to me. I think the threads of opportunity is a great idea. I read your post on the link provided. Unfortunately, I didn't get a sense of how the various charities work and how it dovetails with DEI. I realized that what you wrote was very brief. I'm involved with a great group of attorneys in the small firm division of Los Angeles County Bar Association. I think Threads of Opportunity would be a great idea for LA. Thanks for reaching out. So first of all, DEI is not a charity. That's just put that out there. This is not charity work. Secondly, you don't see how providing people who need clothing with clothes for free is DEI. What that tells me is that you don't know what DEI is. There's assumptions there that are not being spoken. I wonder what she thinks DEI is. And I bet you
I know what she thinks DEI is. I know what she thinks.
Taking away merit-based things. That's what she thinks, right? So what I responded to her was, happy to discuss further if helpful, but no pressure at all. The event itself is definitely worthwhile in putting together for all the people it serves, but even for creating a sense of community within the bar. If I could answer any questions or provide any guidance about what to do to put something like this together, do not hesitate to reach out. Take good care. I was not going to educate her.
No.
Why would I educate her? She didn't ask me to educate her.
She already knows what DEI is.
She already knows. But I'm open to having the conversation if you want to, and even open to helping you put one together for yourself, homegirl. Just reach out. But it's interesting that she felt the need to tell me how she didn't see how this was DEI related. But it's okay. Like, I don't blame her. And I think that someone like her who could see the value in the thrift shop is closer to being able to understand what DEI is than many others. And so, again, we're not going to cut them out. We just I need to know what my boundary is with this person. I am not going to argue with this person. I'm not going to waste another minute of my time to try to educate this person. Like, if that post didn't do it, que Dios te bendiga, have a good day, like, go somewhere else. Not here, though. Not here. You know, I don't want this episode to be a, like, complain fest and all those things. And I think it could easily, like, sound like that. But I think there's more here that we're talking about and kind of pulling back the curtain to say, hey, there's actually a lot more nuance even involved in your intention, but definitely involved in your actions. And so you need to be thinking about those things when you contribute. And listen, we're going to make mistakes, right? We all are going to make mistakes. So if you find yourself being the problematic person, being the person that makes the mistake, maybe take some time to reflect. Think about ways to make it right. Think about ways that you can show up in the way that maybe you were hoping to show up. Because I feel like if you sign up for this, even if there is like egotistical or selfish reasons for signing up, you don't sign up to do good just for those things. I have to believe that people want to do good and want to share and want to like participate in community care. It helps everyone. So I hope that this episode can provide folks with just an opportunity to consider the ways that you show up, even when you have the best intentions and it doesn't quite work out the way you imagined.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Building Belonging. Opinions expressed are those of the speakers and not necessarily of the City Bar. If you enjoy this podcast, please like and subscribe wherever you listen. This podcast was produced and edited by Eli Cohen and Dana Ray Tovar.